Today I'm going to ask you to do something very difficult. All of you have a piece of chocolate in front of you. If you don't, find one, because someone's stolen it already. I want you to pick up that piece of chocolate, and I want you to maybe smell it. Think about how good it would taste if you were to take a big bite of it after unwrapping it. But you can't eat it. And I'm going to ask you not to eat the chocolate for the next 10 minutes. Because for the next 10 minutes, as much as you might think about how good it would taste or how delicious it would be, we're going to talk about willpower. Now, what do I mean by willpower? Willpower is our ability and what we use to override our default desire. Our default desire of what we want to do in a situation. Right now, that would be, for me, eating the chocolate right in front of me. For many of you, maybe the same thing. Now, why am I up here talking about willpower? It seems like a pretty normal thing for us to have. Well, because much of what society tells us about willpower is that it's an innate trait. You are a driven person. You're a motivated person. The last 15 years of science have told us that that's not necessarily the right way to think about willpower. And the reason this is important to me is that willpower informs everything that every change I try to make in my life. In fact, willpower is critical to change because it involves overriding your default, overriding eating the chocolate. In America, 27% of people say that lack of willpower is their biggest barrier to change. I'm sure many of you can think of examples of how that has affected your life. Things you've wanted to change, or maybe some things that your friends have wanted to change. So what I'm going to share with you today is a new way to think about willpower, some of the recent research that's gone on about how we would understand willpower, with some illustration with our chocolate. And I'm also going to share with you practical tips on what you can do to augment your willpower. So the first thing I'll give to you is that willpower should be thought of as a muscle. It's like every other physiological system. The neurobiology of the brain is very similar to the biology of a muscle. Willpower can be depleted. Willpower can be exhausted. You need to maintain it with rest, give it time, and it can be strengthened with practice. So let me go through each of those in turn. First, willpower is exhaustion. If I have you sit there with the chocolate in front of you for the next 30 minutes, you can't eat it, it's sitting right in front of you, you can't taste it, and then I asked you to go and solve a very hard math problem, you would last half as long on that math problem as a group of 60 people that I pulled from the courtyard over there. Willpower is an expendable resource between activities. So if you expend a lot of willpower resisting the chocolate sitting in front of you right now, you won't have as much of it to deal with the hard math problem. Much like a runner who's completing 2 marathons in a row. The second point I want to make is that rest and fuel make a difference to willpower. For those of you who didn't eat breakfast, not having that chocolate right now may be a difficult task. But that's not just because you're hungry. Blood glucose levels, if they're low, make you twice as likely to be the person who unwraps that chocolate than the person next to you. And if you didn't sleep last night, you're up to 25% more likely to unwrap that chocolate than the person next to you. The other consequence of this is that when you're not rested or you haven't eaten, at the end of the day, perhaps you're hungry at night, when you're fatigued, this will tend to cause you to give up on many things that you wouldn't otherwise when you're freshly fueled and rested in the morning. The last point I want to leave with you is practice makes it stronger. Like a muscle that you work out on a regular basis. If you took that chocolate and you stared at it for 10 minutes each day, but said, I'm not going to eat this, and you did that for 2 weeks, at the end of 2 weeks, you would see benefits in your ability to quit smoking. People report benefits in their ability to make better grades, benefits in exercise, benefits in keeping with a diet. These have been studies done with all sorts of hard activities. Writing with your non-dominant hand for 5 minutes makes a difference if you do it every day for 2 weeks. Changing your exercise routine, even if you exercise exactly the same amount. Just doing something different, overriding your default, makes a difference after 2 weeks. So, with my time remaining, I'd love to share with you a couple practical tips about how you can use this understanding of willpower as a muscle to change what you do in your life. And there are 4. First, and not necessarily obvious, identify what you are going to use your willpower on. Pick your battles. Because if that chocolate weren't sitting in front of you right now, you'd probably have an easier time resisting it. And the math problem I would ask you to solve afterwards, you wouldn't be depleted in. A lot of people think, if you don't think that willpower is an expendable resource, you don't know about that concept, you'll tend to do activity after activity and wonder why you can't keep doing the hard stuff when you get to the end of the day. So pick your battles. The second thing, like a muscle, it gets exhausted. So take breaks. You sitting there for 10 minutes with that chocolate in front of you affects your ability to do the hard math problem afterwards. But if I give you a 5-minute break in between, your ability to last on that math problem is completely restored. So if you've got hard tasks, take breaks in between them. This is also not just something for yourself and how to change your own life, but how to change the lives of others. If you give somebody in your work organization a hard task, multiple hard tasks, accept the fact that they might need to take a break in between the two of them. Because that's going to enhance their ability to complete it. Third, rest and fuel are important to willpower. So make sure you're well rested and fueled if you're going to be doing hard things. It's as simple as getting a good breakfast in the morning and not depriving yourself of sleep or meals when you're trying to get stuff done. Give yourself a little bit of space. And finally, the last thing, practice. I gave you a couple of examples today. A couple of examples on ways in which you can, over time, build up your willpower. Because willpower is something that all of us are going to need to change the hard things in our lives, and that other people around us will need to change the hard things in their lives. And this kind of practice, whatever activities you choose to do, will enhance your abilities to get the big things done. Thank you very much for resisting for the last 10 minutes. And you can now eat your chocolate. Thank you.